Welcome back. Today on the channel, I'm gonna name this episode "Random Tasks." You all know I'm putting a new motor and transmission in here, and a differential center section, and I'm gonna make this a nice cruiser. This 1966 four-door Coronet, which I named the Funky Phantom. So today, let me take this off for the mount. I got a few things I'd like to do. I don't know how much stuff I'm gonna get around to do. It seems like I'm the king of quick stuff to do. So while I'm waiting for parts, the first thing I want to conquer today is that bolt right there is loose. I noticed when I was doing the brake line, which is right there, that bolt wasn't even tightened down, and that's from the spindle to the backing plate, which holds the mechanisms for the brake and brake drum. So I'm gonna have to take this nut off, take the wheel bearing out, take the brake drum off, and put a wrench or a socket in the front of that one bolt, check to see if the other four are tight. And that should be it for that. From that assignment, I'd like to, I don't know if this light helps or hurts. In this space right here, hang on. These two bolts is where the power steering pump bracket mates to. So I'm probably gonna try to mount that today. I'd like to put some PR15 black on this damper. Not sure if I'm gonna get to that today. I have a collector to put on the right header, the right side header. So once the transmission is in, whatever modifications need to be done, I can go ahead and reconnect the exhaust together again. And what else I wanna do? I may even cut this pipe to get closer to reinstalling the exhaust system. And also, I'm probably gonna treat this with POR 15, paint over rust. Put a coat of black on that on both sides. And that may be it. I don't know if I'm gonna get to all of it, but stay tuned. And yes, that noise was me hitting my head on the lift, and that shit hurt it. All right, to start a job like this, I usually use a pair of cutters to get the cotter pin off. I usually use a adjustable wrench or a channel lock, but I don't have the keys to the toolbox, and I don't have those tools with me. So first I want to start off with the cotter pin. This is going to be a video that I talk. I'm going to act like I'm talking to myself, but I know once I edit the video, I'm going to be talking to you guys. I usually don't say much because I'm usually a quiet kind of guy and not used to filming everything. It's going to be something new. So there's a cotter pin that slides in a hole on the spindle, and that kind of holds this cap that goes over the nut. And if you can see it, it will go in there like that, and then you bend the cotter pin back, and it'll keep the nut that holds this whole thing together from coming off. So I'm just gonna find a place to put these parts. I'm hoping that this brake drum don't fight me, because I've had this car, I think, about a year. I didn't do much to it because when I got it, it had a problem with the head gaskets. The vehicle smoked a lot. And the state that I'm in wouldn't allow me to register it. So this is where you would use the channel locks or adjustable wrench. And I don't have either, so I'm gonna try to get this done with a pair of vice grips. You guys are out there in the car world. Yeah, this just shy from opening up how I need it to go. You know how it is when you're stuck on the side of the road. You have a problem with your car, you find out what the problem is. And either you have the tools to fix it, or you have the vocabulary to cuss it. I'm gonna get a pair of vice grips. This nut shouldn't be on too tight. Of course, there's specs for everything on torque. But I'm an old school mechanic. Don't get me wrong, when it's time to use the torque specs, I will. But something like this, I won't. And while we talking about torque, taking it off, that's not an issue. You just want to get it to spin. You saw how easy that was. And there's a reason why, and I'll tell you when I'm putting it back together. So you want to just take this nut off. Should come off hand tight, hand loose. So if it's on hand tight, it should come off loose. With your hand, you might get a rough spot on the threads. This vehicle is just as old as I am. Yes, I was born in 1966. And I know things on me don't work like it's supposed to, and it hurts, and it creaks. But that's what it is. So the bolt is off. Let's just put this here. And there's a flat washer. There is a wheel bearing behind that. So I'm just gonna manipulate it a little bit so I can get to the washer. So you'll see the washer comes off. There's a slot in the spindle. There's a slot in the washer, in the flat washer. So when you're putting this back together, you really can't mess it up. Even disc brake setups are similar, depending on what you're wrenching on. But for those who fix cars, you'll laugh at what I'm doing. The ones that don't know that's watching so they can figure out how to do it, you'll get to see how it's done. So, again, here's the wheel bearing, the front wheel bearing, which is usually small. I'm gonna repack this too. Looks like you could use some grease. And I'm gonna pull this drum off and see if it comes off. And it didn't fight me, I'm surprised. This is your brake drum. This is a bearing back here. Right? There's a bearing back here. This is your back bearing. And there's a seal. Good thing I'm putting disc brakes on this car when I get a chance. But for now, I'm gonna go back together. So while I'm in here, I'm just gonna do an inspection of the brakes, see what's going on. And actually, let me take this off the mount. My hands are filthy. Dirty up my camera. I don't like that. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take my gloves off. The gloves are cheap and expensive. I'll take this off the mount. So this is the problem. When I was putting the like I said, when I was replacing the new front line, I noticed that this bolt was loose. And it still is. Wow, I got a lot to go. From the back, so when I tried tightening it down, the bolt started spinning, which tells me I need to hold it from spinning from this side so I can tighten it up from the back. Brakes are fairly new, just because these springs still have color on it, and I actually can still see the newness of the hardware. So somebody was in there, that's probably why this bolt was loose. Either couldn't tighten it down, or forgot to tighten it down, or it was an issue. And I'll find out in a second. But for the most part, it looks pretty good in there. Just throw some more bearing on that spindle. All right, let me put you back on the mount. You guys are gonna be dizzy today because I don't know nobody to hold the camera. I never do, but it's just crazy today. Okay, yep. Yeah, so the first thing I'm gonna do is, they look like a 9/16 or a 5/8. Either get a wrench in the front and come behind it with a ratchet and a socket. All right, let's see if this makes me a lie. I got a 5/8 and a 9/16, and it happens to be a 5/8. So I'm gonna try to see if this is threaded while it's not going down. And it'll give me a of the bolt behind this being the same size as the bolt in the front. And there's no chance. Let me go get an extension too. It's alive! It's alive! Here we go. If this thing fights me, I'm gonna pull out my impact gun. And it's fighting me. What's the story with this damn thing? That's probably why they left it loose. Yeah. Let me reposition. I don't know if I have any penetrant with me. It might be out of the garage. So when the car's up on the lift, you're able to turn the rear wheel left and right. Not exactly what I'm looking for, but hopefully this will do it. Spray some liquid wrench. Let that soak for a little bit. And hopefully I won't break this. I'll put the pressure on it. Get the impact gun on the back, and then I'll put it in the front. All right, let's see what happens. Saw that, but when I tightened it down, when I squeezed the trigger on the impact gun, it pulled it in. So I'm just gonna put a ratchet on the others to make sure they're tight. They are going to phase 2. If not, you're gonna impact them. Spill. Power steering fluid overflow. The power steering gear is in there, not the pump, but the gear is full of oil. And the gear is connected to the steering linkage. So in short, when I'm doing that, when I'm pushing that thing left to right, which will make the wheels go left to right, it's forcing fluid out of the power steering gear. I'm just gonna put a ratchet on and just check to see if it's tight. It's tight. The other ones in the back have cotter pins on them, so they're tight. That's done. I'm gonna show you how to pack grease in the wheel bearing. I remember being in high school, went to a trade school. And my shop teacher, I think he used that as punishment. Whenever we act up, he had us pack wheel bearings with grease. And it didn't bother me, but it's something I don't like doing. But I'm glad he did that to us, because now when it's time to pack wheel bearing grease, I look at a lot of different people how they do it, and it's interesting. Some people just take the grease and rub it around the bearing, but I wasn't taught that way. I was taught to put grease in your palm, and you grab the bearing, and you force grease in the joint. Into the bearing, not the joint. I'm just trying to see where I'm going to do it. Let me turn this camera. Again, there's a lot of ways to do this. Every mechanic is kind of different. I usually like to take grease and I'll put it against that surface that I know that the seal is going to land on. And I'll get some more and I'll grease that spindle. So when that, it's a race back here too, that the rear bearing spins on. And I'll just put a little on the taper on the front. And we're going to put this back together. So don't forget, I put grease on the back of the race. I greased the spindle. You just gotta turn it and make sure it sits. I usually turn it a few times and make sure it's seated. I get my front bearing, stick that in. It just goes on. You can't mess that up. From there goes the washer, the flat washer. Don't forget it has the little tab that goes in the indentation on the spindle that goes back. The nut goes over that. Spin the nut on there. Right. I mean, the brake shoes are a little tight, but I can tell that the brake drum is on there. So some people use channel locks. I like to use channel locks. Some people use adjustable wrenches. Some people use the socket that fits the nut. These are the tools that I have today. I don't have the keys to the toolbox. So what I'm gonna do is just tighten it. What I was taught how to do, you tighten it. Make sure it's seated, and then you back it out an eighth or a turn so it loosens up a little. Turn it a few times, make sure that the bearing is seated. Let's see if I can jiggle it loose. Let's see if there's any excessive play in it. Then I'm looking for the castellated nut. So when you put this, for some reason I'm saying castellated nut. I'm getting older, so I don't remember shit. I'm gonna say castellated nut. May be, may not be, but rock with me. You can actually see the hole. Oh, these fingers that I was telling you about, the cotter pin actually slides in between the fingers, so you can actually position this on the nut and see if those fingers are exposing the hole, which you just did. And I took the cotter pin and I slid it down through. Yes, I used the same cotter pin. Some people like to use new, but I do know that this is not staying on this car. I'm making it so it could be pushed off the lift. I'm waiting for parts, and I think we have another project to do, so this car's not going to sit on the lift. Usually it's two pieces to the cotter pin. I usually take the same cutter and I bend it up. By bending it up, keeps this castellated covet nut from letting the nut back out, from letting the washer come out, letting the bearing come out, this come off, because your wheel comes off completely, and you being on the side of the road in a world of hurt. So that is good. There's a dust cover that goes on there, but my rims have a cover and it doesn't fit. So I use the cover for my rims to use as a dust cover because they both didn't fit. And this project is completed for now. I don't know. Maybe I should paint them now or later or get some more stuff done. Well, that is the end of that portion of the random task. I just want to say something very important. depending on your application, the grease that you use is important. I just used that because I noticed it's coming back off, but I didn't want to put this together and not grease it. Forget something happens, you know, you never know what life has to deal with you. But I would have used the Amsoil wheel grease if I wasn't racing this car, or the Amsoil Dominator wheel grease if I was racing the car. Believe me, this stuff is the truth. All right, what we're gonna do on this segment, I'm gonna try to remove these two bolts that's in the water pump housing. They hold the power steering pump in place. So, I was watching some of my videos the other day, especially when I was putting in the motor. I was working and the camera was so far away, you really didn't know what I was doing. I was in my own little world. So I said, let me try to put the camera up so you can actually see what I'm doing. I don't know how successful that's gonna be. So this is a 360 MOPAR. Not sure the year, I think it's mid-90s. But this particular motor is a hybrid they call. You can only get this motor through Chrysler MOPAR. This was in between the 5.9, which replaced the 360, and the 5.9, where this could take a 5.9 head or a 360 head. I'm trying to see if they put silicone on this or not. No silicone. This could take either head. It could take the 5.9, which is the replacement for this 360, or it can take a 360 head. This particular setup, we went with the 360 head. Again, I don't believe this head is going to be on here too long. We, little Mopar crew that we have, we like experimenting on different power connect combinations and stuff like that. So we're gonna play with this. I believe this is being built to run low 12s, high 11s, and we're gonna do it with this 4-door. I'm gonna attempt to put this power steering pump from underneath. Usually you're doing this from the top. Of course, I'm gonna have to move the camera because it is in my way. I may even have to put the pump in from the top and then lower it if that's what I'm gonna do. Yeah, I was just gonna mount the bracket and then put the pump to the bracket, but that seems like to be more work than it's worth. So let's just get this adjusted. This is the power steering pump, which bolts down there. Those bolts that I removed. And let's see what's going on. I better put those on too tight. Not infinite tight. I'm gonna take this water pump pulley off because there's a bolt that holds the upper mount of the power steering pump. I'm gonna have to go get a Allen key. How's everybody feeling out there in YouTube land? Hopefully you're doing good. Hopefully my videos give you comedy, if not knowledge, or both. Bolts holding this on was Allen head. I didn't put nothing on tight because we're just really fitting stuff. We're actually putting a motor when it came out. This car was long gone. 66. This motor's like a late 90s motor. So whenever you do a project like that, we use the term retrofitting. Whereas you go to the parts store, say you got a 1966 Coronet, the engine that I'm putting in here now would never come up as an option. This engine wasn't even thought of when the car was made. So it's a lot of fabrication and altercation. Not altercation, altercations are fat. Fights. So it appears that this bolt holds the bracket on. So I took the water pump pulley off so I can gain access to that bolt. Because that's just the smart thing to do. You want to work smarter, not harder. At least I do. And you see that I'll look at the bolts. It's anti-seize. Because some of these MOPARs, unless you know them all by heart, take silicone, especially in some of the big blocks, the 440s. You have to put silicone on a lot of the bolts because it will intrude into the water jacket. This is just anti-seize, I can tell. So I took that bolt out, put it through the bracket, and reinstall it. But before I do, I want to make sure that these bolts line up, and they do. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get a few turns on that bolt and make sure that that nut's holding it in place. And now, raise the car back up because it makes it easier. Just a few turns on that. Let me raise the car up to put the bolts underneath. Because when you have a lift, it makes working on the car a whole lot easier. I'm not the age of shape that I used to be. I could lay on this cold ground and probably put me in the hospital for a freaking month. Laying on this cold concrete. So, let's just picture right here. And we're gonna let the car go up. Alright, so we are back. And hopefully, when I reposition the camera, I'm really including you guys in all the work that I'm doing today. So I'm just seeing if this lines up with the holes that's in the block. And I believe it does. Look like it's off a little bit. That's a little strange. Part of that fabrication process I'm telling you about. Because in theory it should fit, but it's not lining up. Interesting. It does line up. It does line up. Okay, we are back. Uncle Milty did not take his memory pill, like Genocanova, whatever the crap they call that damn thing. Absolutely left the ratchet on top of the car. No problem. Got it now, just tightening up that bolt that holds it in place. It's 2 bolts. I believe it's 9/16, I'm not sure. I'm gonna get the other bolt. Yeah,
tighten up this bolt on the water pump to hold it straight.
Get that other bolt and put that in before I go any further. I can't get that one from here. I have to get that one from the top and keep tightening it down and see. I think I do have a drill. Sorry about that. Let's see if you're still looking. Yeah, what seems to be happening is that the bracket is just off by not even an eighth. So I'm gonna just loosen up the top, see if that gives me enough play to get that top bolt in. And it should. If not, I would take the bracket off and get a drill bit and just open up the hole a little bit more on the bracket so it could line up on the motor. And if I can't get it, that's what I'm gonna have to do. Come back with a better drill, with a drill, another better drill, Yeah, I might have to open it up a little bit. Yeah, I might have to. It's not off by much, I'll tell you that. Well, you'd be amazed, different years on the engine, on the bracket, will sink your ship from sailing to progress. Progress. Could be the adjustment on the top here too. Let me try something. I think that's the issue. I think that it was the issue right there. I think that's what it was. Yeah, because that looks good like that. The issue was there was a adjustment on the part of the bracket. And once I loosened that up, things turned for the better. So let me try that again. mystery is solved. Let's see. Yeah, we solved that like the mystery machine from Scooby-Doo. Ruby-Doo! Ruby-Doo, where are you? You know what I'd like to use? Ruby-Roo! Where are you? Yeah, I'm talking about Ruby-Roo, and this is the Funky Phantom. What kind of cartoon am I? That I don't like that. I might have to get a longer bolt. I don't like that. Okay. Give me a longer bolt. Okay. That's no problem. That's no problem. Okay. Let's see what's going on. Very, very interesting. See if that's too long, it's going to come out. Okay, let's see something. That bolt that I just replaced the other one with, the original one that came with the car, I don't even think it was an eighth of an inch longer. But it appears that it's too long, it's bottoming out. But if that's the case, why won't the original bolt go in there? Seems like that's too short. Maybe half inch. I'll try to put the original one back in, but it seemed like the thread, it wasn't reaching the threads. So I'll try it again. Let's see. Get it to bite the thread. I think I got it to bite. I'm not sure what the hell's going on with this thing. Let me see. Yeah, that's not right. Maybe I have to put it in there with some spacers. With a spacer in. That's not right. Yeah, that's not right. That's not right. See if I can find some spacer. Take up some of that spot. It's biting like that. I can't see the issue, honestly. It's not that big of a difference. Hey, but that's funny because it seemed like the screw that was in there pretty tight. It's stripped or was stripped because the threads are right there. This, I mean, grabs threads immediately. Yeah. You know what? I'll make a note to myself. We'll come back to that. I'm gonna have to readdress that. All right. I'll write that down on my to-do list. Okay, that's cool. I will come back to that. I'll put that on my punch list that needs readdressing. Okay. On to the next project. All right, boys and girls, so the nut on the spindle holding the backing plate for the brake drums was addressed and dealt with. Power steering pump is mounted. I'll jot down that I have to readdress the upper motor bracket bolt and get a washer. I don't have access to the other garages where a lot of the other stuff is, so I'll have to come back to that. Could put the fuel pump on today. I can address that. Yeah, because this engine is not coming out. I'm gonna leave the longer hose. All right. So what we're gonna do now, look at the time. Remember, if you don't have time to, the time that you'd like to put into these projects, just do a little at a time. So I'm gonna look at the clock and see how much time I'm working with. And then I'm gonna address the right header and the collector, both sides of the collector. Actually, what I should do is tighten out these motor mounts with the impact gun. Let me do that too. This particular model, doing some adjusting. That's what else I got to do. I don't know the converter. We were doing some last minute adjustments, and I left the motor mount loose. The mount that mounts to the frame. So now that I'm here, we're gonna button this project up, possibly push it to the side so we can do something else. It's time to take these motor mounts up. While I have the impact gun. Come to the back and I'll do this one. Okay, that's done. Next thing we're gonna do is play with the collector. Might cut the pipe too. Let's move you to the collector. You are looking at the header. The headers can be put on hold for now until at least I get the bolts, the header bolts, to bolt that to the motor and get the gasket, so that could be a done deal. Alright, so what's next on the punch list? We could line up the converter. I think that's what we're gonna do. We'll line up the converter. Stay tuned.